Hello, everybody! Welcome to the LIUniverse podcast. I'm Dr. Charles Liu, your host, but please, as always, call me Chuck. It is my pleasure, as always, to welcome our co host, Allen Liu. Hey, Allen, how's it going?
Hello. It's
Oh,
going pretty well.
anything exciting happened recently?
I mean, there's been a lot of space news, but I think we're going to cover that in the episode. So,
Yes, I cannot wait. I would like to give a special welcome to our special guest today, Sarah Al-Ahmed, who is Planetary Society's voice on their podcast as well, amongst other cool things. Hi, Sarah. Great to see you.
Hi, it's great to be on. I
Oh,
honestly it's really cool being invited to come and guest on someone's show. It's the first podcast outside of our own that I've been invited to join. So thank you.
long time coming. Very happy to have you. You're going to be great. I can already tell. For those of you who aren't on watching the video, for those of you who are just listening, Sarah has some really cool headphones, and we might talk about that a little bit later because there's some things about Sarah and her life in the Planetary Society and out, which we can't wait to talk about. It's going to be so much fun. So, as usual, we are going to start with today's joyfully cool cosmic thing. And what is that, you ask? It's this. Well, actually, it happened Christmas Eve of 2021. The Mars InSight spacecraft heard, or rather sensed, some sort of marsquake. Pretty significant one, actually. Like, ooh, a marsquake. That's cool. Well, it took months, but it has been figured out what that marsquake was. It was actually a meteoroid, or a Marsoid, I guess, that actually struck the surface of Mars. And a picture has now been taken of it, and it's been published. And we now know, this is from the high-rise camera from Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, MRO.
mhm.
And it is a cosmically cool thing. It actually literally is a hole in the ground of Mars, and sprayed out around the edges of this are splotches of ice, like regular water ice. Basically, there was water underneath. Whether or not it was liquid water or already solid ice, we don't know. But this meteorite punched through the surface of Mars, sprayed out all this water, and just created a little splitchy thing. And now we know all about it, thanks to Mars InSight and the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. Now, Sarah, I know that the Planetary Society is deeply enmeshed in Mars science and all the kinds of cool things that someday we humans might do in terms of interacting with Mars. What's your take on the kinds of things we're learning about Mars, and especially in this case, InSight and MRO doing this kind of study about Mars and things like Mars asteroids?
Well, it's really exciting because, Insight was designed to kind of tell us what was going on inside of Mars, what the different layers within Mars are. And in order to really establish that, we're looking for Mars quakes, or we're looking for things like this meteorite that hit Mars. And anytime that happens, it kind of almost rings the planet like a bell. And how that wave propagates through the planet tells us a lot about its internal structure, which can tell us a lot about its history and its formation. And this is all just part of a larger picture, which is that we're trying to learn about Mars's past and about its watery past, and specifically because Mars at one point we think was a habitable world covered in water, which we can see evidenced in this layer of water that's probably frozen right underneath the surface. And other spacecraft have seen this as well. Some of the rovers will just roll over some dirt, and lo and behold, right under the surface, there's just frozen water just waiting to be tapped into, which is cool for the history of Mars, but also for future exploration. We could drink that water or use it for fuel, or maybe use it to help us print Mars habitats. It's really exciting.
Wow, that's really amazing. I have to ask, uh, if you had the chance to ask us all to go to Mars or not go to Mars, like tomorrow, do you think we should?
Tomorrow? No. And for a few reasons, right? I mean, I think it's really important that we learn how to establish human habitats on a place like the moon first, get that down before we have to take that 6 months trip all the way out to Mars and put people there. We need to
Fair.
teach people how to, survive, how to grow food, how to protect ourselves from radiation, all kinds of stuff. But more importantly to me, is really like, I'm curious. I'm curious about whether or not life existed on Mars in the past. And if we send humans to Mars now, that could, limit our ability to really tell if what we find on Mars was there before or if it's something we brought
Oh,
there on accident, right?
oh,
Um,
contamination of sorts.
exactly, right? And if we do find life on Mars, and that crazy happenstance, right? We find life on Mars, even if human life already got there and started depositing our earthly organics on the surface, we might be able to tell that they were different because of their genome sequencing and stuff like that. But personally, it's important to me. I want to know if life existed there in the past, and I want to do due diligence to that question before we put boots on the ground.
That's a really nice way to think about it. As you know, NASA has an Office of Planetary Protection, and
Hmm.
it's not about protecting Earth, but it's about protecting other planets from
Yeah.
potential Earth contamination. Uh,
And there's so
let
many places that life could exist. I mean, we went and landed, ESA's Huygens probe on the moon Titan around Saturn before we really even realized that, like, that could be a beautiful place for life to exist.
Yeah.
And it would be the worst thing ever if we went in there unknowingly and harmed the existing life, because I just think of how precious that would be, and how awful it would be to hurt it. I hate it.
Oh,
Yeah.
another excellent point. I don't know, Alan. I think when you were writing the 30-second space travel book, uh,
Yeah.
we were using words like not colonization when we're talking about humans going out to planets, right? Because we don't want to be colonizers. We want to be, I don't know, immigrants or visitors or
Explorers.
friendly neighbors. I don't know, Alan, did you come up with a way of saying something that you wanted to express?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly which words we used in the book, but I know like the idea of that colonization when the process happened on Earth led to some really bad consequences there. And so, I mean, a lot of that has to do with the fact that there were other people in the places that were being colonized. And that's not, we don't expect to find people on the other planets in our solar system, but we still expect to find environments and resources and such that we don't want to mess up by our presence, right?
Right. None of this unobtainium, the blue people avatar movie type thing, right? Blah.
Yeah, yeah.
That would be just
Okay.
awful.
I know. Okay. So, Alan, do we have a question from a student for Sarah?
Yeah, so we have two questions today. We're going to start with one. They're amusingly both by people named Anthony. So they're two different Anthony's. The first Anthony's question is the one we're going to ask right now, which is what date would you expect for Mars to be habitable? And I'm going to interpret that as that either what date in the past was it habitable, if it ever was, and what date in the future could it be habitable if we put an effort into it.
Hmm. Yeah, well, the samples and all the science that we're doing on Mars with the Curiosity and the Perseverance rover and many missions before have taught us that Mars used to be habitable a few billion years ago. Maybe 3 billion years ago, but something happened. The atmosphere we blew off. Basically, the planet didn't have a global magnetic shield to protect itself, and so all that air blew away, and then all the water froze or sublimed. It's really sad to think about how much it's changed, but it's a lesson for us about how planets can change and how precious Earth is and how we want to protect it. So it's cool to think about that. But the other
Definitely.
side of the coin is, will it be habitable again in the future? And there's two ways to really interpret that, because it could be habitable on small scales for humans if we build habitats there. And how
Yeah.
long will that be? I'm hopeful, and this is really kind of pie in the sky, but I bet we could do it in 100 years. I bet we could
Oh,
do
Okay.
it.
how
Um,
optimistic.
well, I know it's optimistic, right? But maybe it's just the happiness in my heart after watching Artemis 1, launch.
Ah,
But
yes.
Yeah,
we
that
we
was
are
cool.
so close to beginning habitats on the moon, really learning what that's all about, and then jumping from there to Mars. So, that's cool, but could we make the whole planet habitable? Probably not.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
The problems that existed in the past that led to it losing its atmosphere and its liquid water, those problems will remain no matter how hard we try. I mean, sure, you could nuke the whole planet to rubble and have it reform, but that would take
Yuck.
even longer. That would take billions of years for it to reform. That's not a good plan.
Oof,
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Not
And we
great.
were just and we were just talking about how we want to preserve and enjoy and appreciate Mars as it is today, not just,
yeah.
bend it to whatever the humans at that time think is best for humans, right? We want to
Yep.
really appreciate what it has to offer to us. So okay, I'm going to mark my calendar. 100 years from now, I'm going to call you, Sarah, and you're going to tell me, hey, did we get there or not? Okay.
I'll be on Mars living in my robot body.
That'll be
That'd be
fun.
fantastic. I love that. Okay, so Sarah, you did do astronomical work for a number of years before moving on to the Planetary Society. Tell us about that a little bit. After your formal education and being in the astronomical field, what was it like? What kinds of things did you do?
It was a wonderful period in my life early on. I went and got my degree in astrophysics from UC Berkeley, and
Hmm.
immediately after that, I started doing research. And even when I was in school, I took a lab course on exoplanet detection, which was
Oh,
important
cool.
to me because the thing that really sparked my love of space to begin with when I was a kid was I was 6 years old and I learned that there were planets going around other stars. I mean, you go from your whole universe being like this one little solar system with a few planets to suddenly an infinite number of worlds. So it was really exciting to do that work. And then right after I graduated, you know, I was a data taker. I was operating a telescope at Lick Observatory. It was the nickel 1 meter telescope, and I was in a
Nice.
group working with Alex Filipenko and
Mm.
a few of my other school friends essentially, and some cool people I met.
For
And we
those
were
of you who don't
yeah.
know,
Mhm.
Alex Filipenko is one of the leading scientists involved with figuring out that there is dark energy in the universe in large amounts. He was involved a lot with the supernova studies and trying to understand the cosmology of the universe. So, yes, he's a
Yeah.
pretty big deal. If you get a chance to work with him, it's a lot of fun. And I'm told he's a very nice guy. So,
A very nice guy and an incredible educator. I
mm,
learned so much from him, and I was really kind of questioning my path after college. It's a hard thing to
mhm.
find a job in astrophysics, and what do you do? Do you go on to grad school? Like, what do you do with that passion? And he took all of that love for space and funneled it into his students, and in a way that was so understandable. I think I learned more from him in one semester than I learned almost in the entirety of college. So he really
Wow.
inspired me, and it was wonderful to work with him. And I guess in some small way I was helping to contribute to that research because I was basically taking pictures of shiny objects,
Hey.
active galactic nuclei and gamma ray bursts and supernovae and shiny objects that they could then use that data to go on and feed into the research. So it was it was really cool. um, but I learned after that as cool as it is to find planets and to take pictures of really awesome things in space and operate telescopes, the thing that really filled my heart with joy was sharing what I learned with other people. So
Mm.
after that, I
Mhm.
took that education in astrophysics and I went on to work at Griffith Observatory, and that
Ah,
was just a wild ride. I was there for 6 years, originally just kind of teaching people about science on the floor and taking them to go see the telescopes and sharing that experience with people. And then teaching the school field trips for 10-year-olds was
yeah,
Oh,
that's
quite a thing
awesome.
for me. Like,
Well, now, yeah, a lot of people don't know. For those of you in the audience who don't know what Griffith Observatory is, it is this beautiful, amazing building way up in the hills over Los Angeles. You can see the Hollywood sign right from one of the balconies. And it is just a wonderful place where you learn about astronomy. And they've got planetarium theater in there. They have lots of interesting exhibits. And they have these great scientist educators who come and tell you stuff like on a regular basis. And
Mhm.
I guess, Sarah, you're one of those wonderful people.
Well, I'll say that everybody there, honestly, is just a wonderful human being who's so willing to dedicate their time and their love to share what they're passionate about with everyone. And we get people from all around the world up there, and it's been open since 1935. For just decades, this place has been sharing space with people, and they actually have the world's most look-through telescope up there. So if,
Oh,
if anybody
cool.
gets a chance to go up there and look through that Zeiss telescope up on the roof, it's beautiful to just say look at Saturn through a telescope. It's an experience
oh
every time
yeah.
you do it. But if you think about the legacy of every person who's ever stepped foot up those steps to look through that telescope, and how many people have
Mhm.
have been able to just broaden their experience of the universe looking through that telescope, it's wonderful. and, and recently, after the pandemic, they reopened, and they have a whole new planetarium show. So if anybody gets a chance to go up there and look at, watch that show, it's called Signs of Life, and it's amazing. It's all
Wow.
about where we're looking for life in the universe.
I think that's fantastic. Okay, you heard it from Sarah, everyone. Go see this thing. I'll betray my, geekiness for a second, and I'll tell you that the first time I saw Griffith Observatory on television was actually in the original Wonder Woman television series starring Linda Carter. And I think Alan's heard this story before. They were
I have
like
heard this
setting
story
up this
before.
they were setting up this like spy story where somebody was in this sophisticated astrophysical research center, and they would steal something, and then you had to run away and hide, and it was in the Griffith Observatory. And I figured out, of course, watching it, I was laughing because I knew what it was, so many years later. uh, it was some of the filters of one of the small telescopes, just like an inch diameter kind of glass pieces of red and green and stuff. And he was like tucking in his pocket. And then some security guard starts yelling, "The crystals, the crystals!" And they start running away, and they go
Oh
hide in
no.
the storage room. And then they hide. But meanwhile, the security people completely miss them. So it was just hilarious for me to think that, oh, yes, in an
Yeah, because those
observatory.
are like some of the cheapest pieces of the telescope in real life.
It's true.
Absolutely.
And
Oh,
it's
that
so
cracks me up.
funny, like seeing all the different like movies and TV shows that Place has been in. Like I was trying to explain to my partner, like after I'd gotten my job at Griffith Observatory, like I'm going to
Mhm.
this place. And it was hard to contextualize, trying to explain it to him. So the way I did it was I showed him that the um, a two-part episode from Star Trek Voyager that was
Oh,
filmed there. And so that
yes.
his first context for Griffith Observatory was seeing it in Star Trek. And that was just so fitting.
That's
It
fun.
really is wonderful. Yeah, and you know what? It turned out that episode of Wonder Woman finished not at Griffith Observatory, but at a comic convention. It turned out that the criminals were trying to hide and sneak their way around by getting through in this convention. I don't know if it was technically San Diego Comic-Con, but it was like this big convention, and it just like connected two parts of my life so well. The part where I love doing the science and learning about things, and then the part with Wonder Woman. No, just kidding. The part and the part with Wonder Woman and Superman and Batman and the Fantastic Four and the X-Men, and just all the
Yeah.
convention stuff. It was so cool. Now I had mentioned earlier to the folks who aren't watching the video right now, but listening to the audio, that your headphones indeed has a special thing. And it reminded me immediately of some of the folks that go to the Comic Cons and wear costumes and things like that. So uh, can you describe for the people who can't see exactly what you are wearing and how that like relates to your enjoyment of things like, oh, I don't know, costumes, conventions, that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, okay, so right now I'm wearing the Razer Kitty Kraken 2 headphones. These are
Oh, that's
cat
cool.
ear headphones, and you can't see it right now because I'm plugged into my work laptop. But when they're plugged into my gaming PC, these little cat ears on top change all different colors,
Oh, they
which
got
is
the
super fun.
RGB going.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
wow.
And I actually, it was before Razer started making these headphones, I helped Kickstarter the original cat ear headphone group.
Oh,
Back in the
fantastic.
day, it was a group of people coming out of UC Berkeley around the same time as
That's
me.
fun.
So, I was all about
Amazing.
that because I do. I love costuming. I love showing what I love through what I'm wearing. So,
Yay.
every day to day, I'm kind of like wearing space outfits. Like right now, I'm wearing the Carina Nebula JWST dress. Um,
Oh,
Wow.
awesome.
They've
right?
already made clothing from that? That's fantastic.
Yeah, they have. It's wonderful. We're working really hard right now at the Planetary Society to put together a holiday gift guide that includes some stuff like this. But
Nice.
yeah,
That's great.
part of how I kind of like recharge my happiness batteries is by going to conventions and cosplaying, either at
Yay.
uh, anime conventions like Fanime in San
Mhm,
Jose, or
mhm.
going to San Diego Comic Con.
Oh, that's
Or
great.
Doctor Who conventions. Like
Ah,
I end up
Gallifrey
picking kind
One
of
in
like,
Las Vegas, in Los Angeles. I mean, Gallifrey One
yeah,
in Los
yeah.
Angeles.
Gallifrey One is, I mean, we lovingly call it Galley. It's like a family there, honestly.
Oh,
Because that
that's
show's been
great.
going on for so long, and
Hmm.
just the
Hmm.
love that people put into these very specific outfits. Like I have this dress that I made. It's from a very specific episode where the TARDIS becomes a human for one episode. Her name is Idris.
Oh,
And so
wow.
like I have this outfit, and it's just in one episode, but the people there love the show so much that everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, it's Idris." And it just makes you feel like, so happy
Oh,
to be recognized.
no, it's really
That's
wonderful.
awesome.
As you know, yeah, as you know, our show, I specifically, but the universe in general has a deep and joyous connection with New York Comic Con. We've
Mhm.
been involved for years and have really appreciated it. It's kind of like you say, a recharge of happiness batteries, just
Right?
being there in a kind of
Yeah.
environment that's so loving. Alan, do we have another question? You said we had two questions from students for Sarah, right?
Yeah. The other question's from the second Anthony, who is asking who's asking, how does astronomy impact you as a person or the way you look at life?
So much. I've talked to people before about just the scale of the universe and how that makes them feel. And for so many people, it makes them feel kind of, insignificant in the scope of the infinite cosmos.
Mhm.
But for me, the more I learned about space, the more I learned about our place in space and how precious we are as living creatures, the more it made me feel just so special and important. And like, if we could just be kind to each other and dedicate ourselves to science, just imagine what we could do. Just imagine what lies out there to be discovered. It fills me
Mhm.
with such joy. It really, it makes me feel special and just hopeful, really
Yeah,
hopeful.
that's great. And that is a message that I like to think about too. We may seem small, but actually in the cosmos, we're big to other things. Uh, we may be short-lived compared to stars, but we're long-lived compared to other things.
Right.
We are as awesome and as ordinary as every star in the sky and every galaxy in the universe. And if you've got that message too, Sarah, we are on the same wavelength. All right.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Thank you. So, I mean, it makes total sense that you went from being a scientist working on observations to going to Griffith Observatory and now the Planetary Society, which is
Mhm.
another venerable institution that's been doing a lot of really interesting things about space exploration and humans going out into the solar system and thinking about ways that we can study and learn about and enjoy the universe. Tell us about some of the things that's going on there.
Well, it's been a really, I'm not going to say hectic, exciting time at the Planetary Society,
Okay.
Mhm.
because there are so many things we've been building up to and developing. And finally, all of these projects are like coming to fruition. It's really cool to see. So, something I've been working on in the background ever since I got hired at the Planetary Society is building our new member community app. So
Oh,
we're,
cool.
we've been around since, 1980s, but how how do we give our members a way to connect with each other? It's been a
Mhm.
real challenge because we have people all around the world who love space and
Yeah.
want to talk with each other, and anytime we get them together is magic. So, uh, early next year, early 2023, we're finally going to be releasing our digital community app, so people will be able to download that on their phone and just really get into the science with each other. So
Oh,
that's one personal project I'm super excited about.
oh,
But
can't wait.
we just recently launched our Planetary Academy, which is our membership
Ooh,
program for kids age years 9 and younger.
wow. Get them young, right? Because the people who are going to Mars someday are basically 9 and younger now, right?
Absolutely. Right now,
Mhm.
there are kids out there who don't know they love space, who are about to discover their passion for exploration, and they're going to be the ones that carry our missions on into the future. So we want to give them the opportunity to get involved in science and to really learn about their place in space. So this is like
That's
a
awesome
really
stuff.
exciting thing for us. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know about you, but like, did you
Well,
discover space as a kid and just like fall in love with it?
oh, it took me much longer, actually. I liked
Mhm.
so many things. I couldn't really at any time say that I liked space more than I liked physics, more than I liked biology, more than I liked music, more than I liked art, more than I liked sports. I wasn't any good at most of those things, but it was just what I liked to do. So I
Mhm.
think
That's fair.
liking is more important than being good at it, at least in those young ages, right? And you
Absolutely.
definitely, in the Planetary Academy, you definitely have to share with these kids the history of places like the Planetary Society. We have giants in the field that made such a difference in our understanding of space and our appreciation of space, not just as scientists or as, wanderers, but actually as travelers. The names are famous. Carl Sagan, for one, for example.
Right. It's a wild thing to be part of the group that's like carrying on his legacy. I mean, he was, our one of our founders, and so many of us discovered our passion for space because of Carl Sagan. I was watching Cosmos as a kid before I even knew how to speak, you
Mm,
know?
Wow.
right. And
Yeah.
then Carl's friends and colleagues, Lou Friedman, Bruce
Yep.
Murray,
Bruce
some
Murray.
names who are not as well known but still very important. And
Yeah. And
someday
today
I'll.
today, our legacy is still being carried on by, our CEO is Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Da,
you
da,
know,
da,
we've
da, 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 Sorry, I died. Bill, Bill, Bill. Yeah. Now a lot
it's
of
Okay.
true
people have been
though.
inspired by that too. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, that was
Uh,
my childhood show there. So,
yeah, pretty amazing thing. Now, speaking of things that just recently launched, Artemis 1 just recently launched, right? Uh, doesn't the Planetary Society have something to do with our lunar explorations and things like that?
Yeah, well, Artemis 1 launched a whole slew of CubeSats, 10 of them. And among those CubeSats, one of them is called NEA Scout. That's the Near Earth Asteroid Scout, which is going to be a solar sail that's actually going and exploring asteroids that are near Earth, helping to defend our planet, which is something we care a lot at the Planetary Society. But NEA Scout is something that we collaborated on as a team because we launched our Light Sail and Light Sail 2 solar sails, and we've
That's
been,
right.
consulting with NASA to
Mhm.
help them with their mission.
How did Light Sail 2 go?
It was way more successful than we really anticipated. Sailing on photons, solar sailing is something that was a dream of our founders. It was something Carl Sagan and Lou Friedman and Bruce Murray were all very passionate about. So,
Mhm.
we wanted to make solar sailing a reality, and that meant that we had to get people from all around the world to come together to help us crowdfund the first fully crowdfunded mission in history.
Wow.
50,000 people supported this mission, and it ultimately culminated in our Light Sail 2 mission, which was solar sailing around the Earth. We only expected it to last for about 1 year, but it lasted over 3 years before it burnt up in the atmosphere.
Oh, that's perfect. Now, how do your solar sails work?
Yeah, so we're basically just trying to prove that solar sailing is a viable means of propulsion for a small satellite like a CubeSat. So we
Mhm.
didn't need to have all the bells and whistles so it could really control its flight very well. It's
mhm.
basically just one giant like reflective sail, and it uses the momentum of light coming from our sun to propel itself. So when the photons from the sun come in and then they bounce off of that reflective sail, it gives our spacecraft just a little bit of a push. It imparts some of that momentum from the light onto our sail, which allows us to, push it just a little bit and keep its altitude raised. And then
Wow.
there are some kind of reaction wheels and stuff on board that will then turn it so that we're not, say when the sail is between the sun and the earth, we don't want it being blown back toward the planet by
Yeah.
having its full sail one direction. So we have to turn it as it goes around the sun, so it only gets that push when it's in a favorable direction, essentially.
Wow.
Um,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Controlling the light sail must be like a video game. You're like making sure everything is turning just right, moving back and forth, and everything like that. Before we go, I have to ask you the ultimate question for gamers: console or PC?
Ooh. um, These days, mostly PC.
Mm,
And that's because, I've played through so many games since I was a child. I
mm,
really
mhm,
want to kind of master all genres of gaming. And so it was around the time that I was getting into, like real-time strategy games,
mhm,
StarCraft and
Yeah.
things like that. I started
mhm.
gaming more on my PC. And then I started trying to learn more about first-person shooters and get into that world. And I just, despite playing with controllers since I was a kid, I'm just not twitchy enough. I'm just not accurate enough in
Yeah,
PvP
fair.
games. So these days, mostly my PC.
Fair enough. Okay, so I think I wish we could go on for hours and hours and hours, Sarah. Will you come back again sometime?
Oh, absolutely. This has been so fun, and I feel like we're friends already. I know we just met each other, but I bet we could talk about conventions and gaming for hours on end. So,
Oh yeah.
absolutely.
It would be a great thing.
And let's not leave out astronomy and space travel, because those are
Absolutely.
things that are also such important and wonderful things in our lives. I'm very, very excited about that. So
Mhm.
thank you so much, Sarah. Where can we find you online or social media or something? Find out what you're doing, what the Planetary Society is doing, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I'm about to become the new host of Planetary Radio. So it'll be easy to find,
Yay!
all of my shows will be online at planetary.org/radio if you want to get
Okay.
them through our website. It'll also be up on, Spotify and all the other places you look for podcasts. But you can also find all of our stuff on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Just look for the Planetary Society. And if you want the Planetary Radio specific place, you want to go to Twitter and go for @PlanRad, and I will be posting there.
Nice.
At
Nice.
Plan Red. Thank you so much, Alan. I want to thank you as always. What a wonderful episode, and just a great co-host you are. Thank you, thank you, thank you,
Well, thank you. Yeah, glad to be here.
thank you. Sarah, thank you again, and you will be back. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks for being with us.
And thanks for having me on. It's wonderful to talk to you.
And everybody in the audience, thank you for being part with us today. If you like what you see and hear, please support us on Patreon. And as always, thank you for being a part of the LIUniverse.